episode of Embodying Excellence. I'm Carlo and I'm with Brenden. And today we're going to talk about raising your standards and how raising your standard is going to increase the impact that things have on your life. You excited?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. And we want to dive deep into this because it's something that allows for you to elevate and adjust the different things that you need so that then you can get to the desired outcome that you're after. And what I want to gauge first is when you started training versus your progress now. So if we make a comparison, how do you think that adjusting your standards has played a role in the level of training that you commit to now?
Well, it all goes down to the purpose as well. So first when I started training, I was just going there just for the sake of it to lose a bit of weight, but with no real intent behind it. And without having that intent there, like the standard I had was sort of fairly low. It was just there to get movement going more than anything. Mm-hmm. And without that knowledge there, you don't really sort of have that standard to go to.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what the standards are, it's hard to set them. So I was just going there for general training purposes and just showing up, really.
Yeah.
Whereas now, especially since I've got into powerlifting now as well, you've got that purpose there, and you've got that standard that you know that you've got to hit all the time to be able to get to the desired levels that you want to go to. And having to the training and stuff like that, and seeing other people set standard as well, you know where to go, and that's basically it for me.
Okay, and let's start a little bit deeper. Like, what would be your definition of intent and purpose? Because the thing is, when we have something tangible that allows us to see forward what our intent is or what our purpose is, it becomes a lot easier to then elevate to those standards because we have a direction. So what defines intent for you and purpose so that then you can then create the stepping stones to setting those standards?
Yeah, so the purpose is why you're doing it, and the intent is you willy-nilly going after it and not letting anything go in your way, doing it for that reason. Yeah, that's what I sort of believe is all that, and going 100 mile at it, and I don't really know any other way now, to be honest.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. We've been drilling this for years, so like it's now at that point, and so there might be some people who are listening who are at that starting point of where you were, because to get to where you are right now, obviously there are going to be things that happen throughout, and there would have been times where obstacles would have been in the way and you would have just gone, hey, you know what, there's an obstacle there, maybe I need to stop, or I need to relax, or I might just coast a little bit. So what were some things that either you were telling yourself or when you were reaffirming your intent, what were those things and how do they catalyze to where you are now?
Well, sometimes you get sort of a bit of self-doubt if you don't see the results coming straight away. But I mean, it's one of them things you never see the results on yourself because you're looking at yourself all the time. Whereas another person, you sort of, if you start to get comments from people and get encouraged by people, that helps sort of push you along a lot. That's what I found. But yeah, that it's mainly the self-doubt thing and not getting the results out of the way. But that through developing discipline and stuff like that to keep doing it regardless of how you feel, that's when you start setting that standard that you've got to do that as bare minimum. And then as you go along the journey, once you maintain that standard. You just want to keep going and improve that standard as you go, and improve yourself as a result of that.
Absolutely. And what I've found, like with my training and my current circumstances at the moment, so at the moment I'm consistently training. However, I feel like that parts of me that of old, where I was just constantly binging on TV or food or things like that, they've resurfaced. And I'm evolving into somebody that isn't particularly fond of how they look and how they feel. And so knowing some of the things that I've learned over the years, I'm now able to apply to training the way that I think, so that I can get past. When someone steps back, instead of going forward, they take a step back, what would you say to a person that has gone that step backwards and feels like they're in a rut? What would you say to them?
I would just, if you set back, have a look at overall picture. Think about how you felt when you were at your optimum position, that you felt the best, what you've done in those situations, and by doing that, you know that you perform or you feel a lot better in that situation. You know what to do in the future to get back to that stage. And everyone has their moments that they're not feeling 100%. It's about how you go and grind through them situations and revert back to what works. That determines where you'll end up. If you keep reverting back to like the bad habits and stuff like that, that's going to ultimately determine where you're going to end up. So at least if you've been in that position where you felt good, you know where to go back to. At least you've got that. But if you haven't, then you've just got to keep pursuing it and keep going, and it will come by doing the monotonous tasks. You'll be able to develop that discipline, especially doing so when you don't feel like doing those tasks.
Awesome. And from what I've learned and training and coaching and everything else, mental rehearsal plays a big role. Like how you picture yourself training, how you picture yourself achieving your goals, raising your standards, being the person that you want to be. And so how would you go about, I know how I would go about it. What I would do is I would sit down and clearly define what it is exactly to the letter that I'm looking to do and I'm looking to achieve, and the actions that I need to take in order for me to achieve this set desired outcome. Oftentimes we find ourselves writing goals down where this is what I want to achieve in this year, and here's what I want to do this year, here's how much money I want to make, here's how much muscle I want to gain or how much weight I want to lose. But what it doesn't say is how I'm actually going to do it, like, and the steps that need to be taken in order for me to achieve those outcomes. And so when a person sits down and really rehearses what they're going to look like, how does a person get past just the mental manifestation of their desired outcome and actually applies what they think about to getting the work done?
Okay, so in terms of having those, you've got those goals there. You've got it's just a day by day thing, in my opinion. You've just got to. We spoke about it last episode. The power list. The power list is what sort of I use to get to your goals. You're never going to fulfill your complete potential because your standards keeps going higher as you go along the journey. So all you've got to do, in my opinion, is each day write out a list of tasks you've got to do that you think will move you towards achieving those goals that you've got.
Mm.
And by doing so, you're moving towards that direction, and you can look back and see that you've been getting progress from that, and eventually by doing everything you're going to achieve your goals.
Beautiful. And what I would like to add to that is there's a proportion component of this where it needs to be your mental attitude and your mental rehearsal and picturing what your outcomes and desires look like. They need to be proportionate, or at least disproportionate, to the actions that you're taking in order to achieve your goal. So if your scale is mental manifestation and it's disproportionately more than the action that you take, then you're going to be stuck in delusion. You're going to be stuck in that consistent cycle of thinking about achieving your goals but never getting anything done. And at the same time, if your actions are disproportionate to the mental manifestation, what can often happen is you prioritize too many of the wrong tasks, and then you're doing all these things but you aren't really achieving anything, and you feel like you're overworking yourself, and then instead of actually stopping and taking the time to think about what you're doing, you just set yourself the next task and the next task, and then all of a sudden you get this feeling, oh, I don't know how to relax, like I need to validate my existence by doing all these work and impressing all these different people. So by adding that proportion component of appropriately adding the mental picture of what that looks like versus the actions that you take, by having that power list, and then also at the same time consistently reviewing what your plan looks like over the course of 30, 60, 90 days, maybe even a year, maybe even 5 years, you're better able to then determine what steps that you need to meet, so that then each time that you're addressing your daily tasks, then you can clearly see the direction that you're taking, rather than doing all these different things and then not really pinpointing what these actions are going to lead you to. And then on the other side of that, you have this grandiose dream of achieving X and Y, but you don't really have A, B, C, D, E written down to actually achieve said dreams. So they need to be in proportion with one another. I don't believe in balance, because to me balance is one of those things where people overuse that term and they use it to excuse themselves from doing any work.
Justify not doing work.
Not doing work, and so that's why I don't use that word anymore. It's about proportions and how you're able to leverage different levers. So whether that's with your training, learning specific things about what you're doing in your powerlifting, so that then every session that you show up, you do the non-negotiables, and you're more efficient with your time at the gym, so that you can effectively do other things. And then also at the same time, taking that time to visualize your lifts and visualize how winning is going to look for you, so that then when you're there, that physical reality then comes in behind that mental reality. And so it's a harmony with one another, rather than getting stuck in that overwhelm of doing all these unnecessary tasks, or getting stuck in that delusion of thinking about and imagining all this success without actually setting down what needs to be done. And so I think we've all been in that loop where we either just do so many things at once and overachieve and validate our existence, or go into this mental masturbation where we have all these vivid images of us winning and glorifying ourselves again to validate our existence, but we never actually get anything done, and then we wonder why we feel so ashamed or guilty or afraid all the time. When we learn to harmonize the two and really go deep within ourselves, then that's how we can drive forward. And I think you've done that really well, like with your training and with how you work and the time that you spend with your family and doing specific tasks. Like, it's been quite transformative to just watch you blossom.
I appreciate that. Everyone's always got something to work on, and I'm always working on something every day. In terms of basically getting tasks done that actually go towards your goals, you've got to know where you're going. Unfortunately, a lot of people spend more time working out plans for going out drinking on the weekend and dinner reservations or stuff like that, rather than actually where they want to go in life. You can't just hop in the car and start driving and expect to get to where you want to go to. You've got to know where you're going. So the same things applies to the tasks that you put down in your power list. You've got to know where they've got to lead to where you want to go. So by setting aside a bit of time there and just writing down exactly what you want, and you can visualise that as well. Spend a bit of time visualising either first thing in the morning or before you go to bed as to where you want to go, and by doing them tasks it's going to further enhance that visualisation to actually happening.
And that's basically your standards blueprint, isn't it? Like you just map it all out, and all these little points of either intersection or direction where, because sometimes things are going to cross over. Like you're gonna have little things where you're gonna go and act in a certain way because you've only been doing it for the last 2 decades, and then you're gonna try and implement a new habit. Meanwhile, you're just doing this thing that you've been doing that isn't serving you, and that's going to be a point of intersection. That's going to be a crossroads where you're going to have to make a decision where you're going to go, am I going to do the same thing that I've been doing over and over because it feels familiar and comfortable, or am I going to actually go and do something new that feels unfamiliar? And as we get older and as we realize our mortality, what tends to happen is we tend to gravitate more towards the familiar. And I feel like that this would be an invitation to become unfamiliar, a little bit uncomfortable, because the thing is, when you allow yourself to do that, you'll be able to appreciate how resilient you actually are and how persistent you are in going towards your goals and going towards your standards, rather than just constantly reverting back to what you always do. And so when you build this blueprint, this standards blueprint, with the points of intersection, when you make those new decisions and then it takes you in the direction that you're after, then what that does, it makes things easier to then spread out, because now you're going, all right, I've got this point, I've got this point, I've got this point, I've got this point. These are the non-negotiables. This is what I need to do. These are how I'm going to raise my standards. And then when those standards raise and you do those things so well that you wouldn't even question them anymore, that's when it becomes a lifestyle. And I remember seeing, I think it was Stan that posted last week that you don't have a weight loss problem, you've got a lifestyle problem. That's all it is. And so when you divert everything that you might have learned and you actually categorize it and map it out, write it down, whether that's on the power list or even just in a journal, you do it like a brain dump. When you put it all together and you create that blueprint for your standards and you categorize each one, so that then you then have a good map and a good vision of where you're going to go, that's what's going to build it for you. And having people in your corner that help you build this through, and actually opening yourself up and trusting people to help you, rather than just going, oh, I can do this alone. Like, no one that's successful anywhere has done anything alone, ever. Whether they have a board of directors, whether they have people in their corner, whether it's a community, whether it's a family, whatever that looks like. No one's ever done anything by themselves. So for you to say, well, I can do this on my own, well, you're a fool. And so having that blueprint, having that map, like you said, and then being able to add these necessary points, so that then at least you've got a clear idea of what that direction looks like. It's not going to be linear, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, but at the end of the day, like, it's not the end that matters, it's that journey that matters. The things that you learn within that journey, the people that you meet and that you connect with, the relationships you build, the lessons that you're able to then give away on podcasts like this, you're able to then spread that goodness and consequently raise your standards and then change your life.
100%. It's just one day at a time, improving it, and
So to really dial this in, like what would you say that some habits that people might not be using right now would be useful to then create and put forward as a standard, so that then they can elevate their training, they can elevate their relationships? What would be some things that you would list as important habits so that then they go ahead and get the work done?
So first of all, probably sleep. Get plenty of water in. Having integrity. So if you say you're going to do something, actually do it. Not just with other people, but to yourself. By having integrity with yourself and doing things that you say you're going to do, you're going to gain self-confidence, and that will help you in many different ways. Develop discipline by doing stuff like that as well. There's a heap of things. Depends. It goes back to the standard things as well. So by having continuing to raise your standards, your habits continue to go larger as well. So yeah, it all correlates with each other.
Awesome. Yeah, look, those training habits are like non-negotiables. Like having your sleep, having your water, having the right nutritious foods, getting your workouts in, getting your steps in, getting sunlight in. Like those are vital. Yeah. Those are vital because that allows you to have more energy, and then when you do have more energy, you have that drive to complete your tasks. Oftentimes, because we're either crammed in an office or we're so just bombarded with our day to day that it just becomes overwhelming. But rather than absorbing the overwhelm, we just take it in, and then that just leads to just that chronic stress, and then little outbursts or little cracks where we sort of go, oh yeah, you know what, we could probably just skip the gym tonight. Oh, you know what, we could watch a couple of episodes of our favourite show, and then suddenly we're skipping the gym for 3 months, and then 1-2 episodes of our show becomes just binge watching almost every night. And that often happens because we constantly battle internally with ourselves, and we make compromises with ourselves when we shouldn't be negotiating at all, because we have standards, and if we don't have those standards, then that's how those internal dialogues happen. Oh no, you know what, like we're supposed to be dieting, but you know what, one ice cream couldn't hurt. Like
where's the stop then?
But that's what it is. Like with the discipline, like with the discipline and the standards, that's not even a conversation. It's just like, hey, ice cream's not on the list. Ice cream's not on the list. Like there's nothing good or bad, but like you said to yourself, like ice cream's not on the list, so forget it. Yeah,
you said to yourself, it's not on the list. It's not on the list. It's about sort of keeping the promise to yourself and developing the mental toughness. And by developing that, then it's going to take you places. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. Like, you know what you got to do, but it's just you sticking to what you got to do is the problem.
Yeah, and I like how the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle said that we are what we repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence isn't an act, but it's a habit. And so, it's those habits that we build for ourselves that we ourselves decide what is good for us. Because sometimes what also tends to happen is people get into shape, people do all these great things, and they're often influenced by others to do so out of fear. Like, so they go, this particular person had this particular impact in my life, and if I don't live up to their expectation of me by doing these things, then I'm worthless. And a lot of people do really well, and oftentimes it's because they propel themselves towards not disappointing that person or that thing, when they can really go, hey, you know what, I'm doing this for the love of it. I'm doing this for me. I'm looking to develop myself and develop my capacity to give and to serve and to be of service. And so having that switch and having that ability to go, hey, you know what am I really doing it for? Like, that's very powerful as well. So using fear as a driver is powerful, also very successful, but long term, not often. Oftentimes, fear may get the better of you, and at the same time, you'll do all these really irrational things all at once, and it might be just like a house of cards that just falls from underneath you, where doing it out of love, like doing it for the love of yourself, the love of your friends, your family, the game, like, and whatever field that you're in, like, there isn't an end. Like, it just continues. Like, you just continue to elevate, and love is what weeds out the hate, the neglect, the anxiousness, the guilt, all of it. It's all dissipated by love. And then when you apply that love to yourself and then to everything else around you, that's where everything else grows. Like, we had that conversation last week where that energy that we feed off different people and how we energize others, we're able to then develop ourselves. And so when we raise those standards, when we implement those new habits, the energy just grows as well as ourselves. And it's a pretty powerful stuff.
You as you start to develop them habits as well, they become second nature. You don't even think about them.
No.
It's just become something just part of your life. Like them things that it was a bit hard for me to come up with, because all the stuff I don't even think about as habits that people should look at implementing, because it's just something I don't even think about anymore. It's just something that's there. That's you got to do this. That's normal. This every day. Do that. This, even come to like a morning walk, for example. Like, that's before I wouldn't even think about it. I'll do that. But now I've been doing it for a while now. And I don't even think about it. Even if it's raining, I don't give a shit. I'll just get it done. Put a hat on or whatever, so I don't get freaking, what's your name, sick or anything. But you just get it done. But it just becomes a habit. So.
Habits are almost everything. It's like you said earlier, habits and intent. Like having the proper intent allows for you to have a strengthened sense of what your direction is and what your purpose is, so that then you can create those foundational habits that will allow you to then step into who you need to be so you can achieve those goals. And I think that's what embodying excellence is about. And we're not always going to start at the end. Like, we always begin at the beginning. We need to, like you said, go a day at a time, a step at a time, and sometimes we might have all of this pre-existing knowledge, and we think that we're entitled to being at step 12 rather than step 1, and then when things at step 12 don't work, we quit. Because we go, we should know this, but we don't know this, and why don't we know this, and why isn't it working? And oftentimes we haven't done step 2 to step 11, and we haven't clearly defined what they look like either, so that when we do the things, or we don't do the things, like, we just get stuck. We just get stuck in this perpetual cycle of thinking that we should be somewhere else when we forget to be exactly where we are. And so having that presence of mind and going, you know what, I'm humble enough to admit that I'm in this spot because of my decisions. I'm in this spot because of my habits and everything that I've done over the last 365 days, last 720 days. And we're missing components, and we need to be able to be humble enough to ask other people for help, or seek things out and learn things and do some introspection within ourselves, so that then we're able to get at least some clarity on how we're going to make progress, so that then when we write those things down and we have that mental image of how we're going to look or how we're going to be when we are successful, we can just take it in our stride and take it each day at a time.
100%. Just one day at a time. Get the job done.
It's very simple, but in saying that, it's also can be quite challenging, especially if our mental narratives and our mental beliefs either hinder us, if they hinder us, or even if they benefit us, but we're not really fully conscious of what that looks like, and we often just do the things that we're comfortable with or that we're familiar with, and then it'll always take us to exactly where we are. I think we can close off with this quote where I heard heard years ago from a seminar, and it goes, you can have more than you got by becoming more than you are, and if you stay how you are, you'll always have what you've got.
Yeah.
And I don't think it could be said any better.
No, summarises it pretty well to me.
Yeah. Dude, raise your standards.
Yeah, 100%.
Raise your standards.
Yeah.
Thanks guys for tuning in, and I hope this helped, and don't forget to give us a follow at the Embodying Excellence podcast.
Thank you.